Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. This is a series that consists of spewing out assorted thoughts which arose from somebody who thinks too much, taking in, and generally loving various entertainment media by the boatload. These tidbits may be mini theories, observations, or simply jokes. Hopefully people will find them entertaining or at least interesting. And who knows, maybe they'll lead to others looking at what amuses them in different ways than before. Also, bear in mind that everything blabbed about in these videos comes from the perspective of somebody who's experienced every main story bit connected with whatever works currently being gone over. So spoilers are a definite. However, other works set in a shared continuity will typically solely be referenced in a way that only makes sense to anybody who's also experienced those ones fully up until their same time occurring points. Sort of a coded nod kind of deal. So, while things will be more fun for viewers who've indulged with an entire universe's works, nobody who has yet to do so will get non-experienced events spoiled. Now, with all of that out of the way, here we go. Pilot, Parts 1 and 2. Why Rip chose everybody. Timeline insignificance. Mick and Leonard probably aren't specifically integral as Captain Cold and Heatwave. Central City's history only needs a group called the Rogues. Lots of successors are available to take up that mischievous mantle. Sara was considered dead for years and never got that cleared up. Multiple people are capable of bonding and forming Firestorm, so Jason Rush plus somebody else could have become the new 2016-ish Present One when needed. Ray doesn't own a company anymore, all of his main inventions have already been created, and if Atom Heroics are early 21st century timeline integral, Ryan Choi could suit up someday. As for the not really insignificant ones in this scenario, Kendra and Carter aren't just there because they are the only ones capable of killing Savage. Rip also needs them as bait for drawing the guy out. Moving on to not unimportant related roster development reasoning, everybody is a fair bit more selfish than typical DC headlining types, and thus may be significantly sympathetic to Rip's true goals. Stein just thinks everything is fascinating. In particular, as demonstrated by one of his first Flash appearances, he's a little time travel obsessed, especially with regards to the past and all that famous scientific idol meeting goodness. Plus, hopping from one era to another is kinda the pinnacle of crazy physics achievements. So everything with his purely professional pertaining personality parts gets all excited too. Snart and Rory obviously just want to steal stuff, plus at least one of them is always capable of, and or willing to, kill witnesses, which would help with past dudes seeing crazy future stuff related history change prevention. Also, real quick, an elaboration of Rip's later package deal comment about Snart and Rory. If Mick joined the team alone, or got left behind in Central City, there's an extremely high chance that at least one civilization would get burned down without Snart reeling him in. So yeah, a lone heat wave would cause great historical changes in and of itself. Related to some of those previous bits, Sara still has that whole post-resurrection generated bloodlust deal going on, so she'd also be quite useful for people who know too much associated permanent silencing. If only a little bit, Ray wants to experience fame in some way once again. He also might want to try and save his fiancée, so extra Captain Hunter sympathy potential going on here. On the other not world safety neglecting individual goal concerning hand, Dr. Palmer's deluxe edition moral compass would certainly help pull everybody away from getting too comfortable with hankered history honing homicide. In a similar vein to one of the last things, and on top of being Stein strapped, Jax might want to try his hand at Father Death undoing. The bird people also want revenge on top of just needing Savage dead in order to keep on reliving. Captain Hunter's insistence on pretending to still be a time master and strictly following their rules probably isn't really because he truly doesn't want anybody else making history changes. Rather, Rip's actually concerned with others' potential era alterations causing a ripple effect that prevents his family from being saved. Cisco probably neglected to make a mask for Sara because he figured her ninja skills are all she needs in the not getting found out department. Especially because not legally being alive anymore means she's already gotta be extra stealthy anyway. How the others could stop Savage if Kendra/Carter didn't join up. Snart could potentially freeze him in a place where he'd never thaw out, like the Antarctic. Stein and or Ray could figure out how to build a prison that would hold him indefinitely. Ray could shrink him, which opens up all kinds of stashing away forever options, and Stein might be able to make some sort of supremely sturdy, shackling structure by himself or even with Firestorm's transmutation abilities. Sara's League of Assassins knowledge could have led the way to discovering an immortality-removing spell, or at least a sufficient binding one. The magic hot tub folks must know something about at least one of those things. Such sorcery might even be part of some sort of secret contingency plan for a rogue race. Rip's future Legends kidnapping doodad is probably erasing witness memories on top of knocking suckers out. This invention-inflicted info incineration wouldn't just be carried out for future guy presence hiding reasons, though. Captain Hunter also wanted to make sure all those potential recruits didn't get fame-making levels of exposure, as that makes stealing them away from their lives and history a fair bit more difficult. The possession of a mind-wiping flashlight taser may have also been just in case anybody truly didn't want to take a trip with Rip. Kronos has difficulty successfully hitting the two non-Snart colleagues Mick grows to be most fond of, Ray and Stein. Martin is quite good at playing a criminal mastermind because not only did his continued transmutation research involve much university deceiving, but he also almost definitely had to have stolen much food for staying alive related purposes after first fusing with Ronald Raymond. Plus, being on the run from General Eileen in Seattle might have involved some credit card fraud or whatever too. Gideon displaying Central City specifically while giving her historical destruction summation to the team isn't just because about half of them are from there. It's likely that the calm chronology calculating computer harbors a fair bit of sentiment for said location, as that's where her original iteration was created. On the more tactically logical side of things, Central City's eradication would be a ludicrously high super-terrorist priority because the Flash would be their biggest threat. Stein didn't like eating pizza before merging with Ronnie because such foods remind him of his stoner days. Sara isn't just getting high for fun. She's also trying to quell her Lazarus Pit-induced bloodlust. Stein was able to create his not a roofie because he probably tried to make custom drugs for himself while all that sweet grad schooling was going on. On a related and minutely more serious note, Stein's theory on history being like a highway with countless on and off ramps could have been the result of him briefly glimpsing the Speed Force while totally tripping balls. Given that the Constantine series involved people using magic to get stoned, it makes sense if folks could accidentally trigger some sort of sorcery involving partial portals and whatnot while attempting a regular self-inflicted freaky mind-blowing. Time Shift's medical facilities are probably full of technology originally designed for speedster treating. The ability to instantly generate a ceaselessly administered stream of sedatives would definitely help with that experiencing surgery while awake problem they typically have after all. If somehow any particularly famous speedsters didn't feel compelled enough to have such problems looked into for themselves, they'd almost definitely want it dealt with before any of their superpower inheriting children experienced such suffering. Blood ties. Ray being human eye visible, which of course shouldn't be possible if he were small enough to go inside a bloodstream and hang out with some cells, isn't just for granting the audience eye-based satisfaction. Dr. Palmer's insufficient insignificance would have been so Stein knew he was currently inside that syringe. Further shrinkage ensued more or less immediately after needle pushing began. One more thing about that Microman molded masterful medical moment. Ray probably studied physiology and anatomy while working on his shrinking tech solely because he was imagining all the cool stuff that could be done with such magnificent miniaturization machinery. White Knights. Sara was chosen for that Pentagon-penetrating position because she's the only current lifetime originating military group experience having member on Rip's crew. What with her murder cult time and all that. Kendra, on the other hand, was probably in a relatively modern army in some kind of recent lifetime. So even if there weren't any full-on memories available to her, she might still have some buried instincts that could lend a mission completion furthering wing. Plus, her original life as a battling holy woman may have involved some sort of present-day resembling combat strategy utilizing what with how much Egyptian hoopla has been passed down through the ages, like paper. No super-powered being and crazy tech existence-related tracks covering at the Pentagon would have to be done beyond footage destroying because all those lovely government folks would know about such things due to a certain justice society's former existence. If anything happened afterwards, there was probably some kind of meta-search task force given the job of finding those guys, and they'd almost definitely have several similar missions on their plate already. Fail-safe. Soviet Firestorm mass production would reach its peak rather easily, as their government would gather plenty of volunteers without restraint because they'd possess no concern about consent or failures dying and whatnot. Things may have even involved intentionally burning through all incompatible folks until most of the populace was nuclear. Shortly afterwards, the breeding program would begin. Ray's relatively relaxed handling of his electricity-based torture probably isn't just because he's not covered in third-degree burns like Mick. Chances are, the smallness-smitten scientist shocked himself quite a few times while creating his atom suit, and thus he's developed some tolerance to such pain. Rip's reversal on killing Stein came about because at some point, it suddenly hit him really hard that Jax would die too, quite possibly in front of him. This thought, coupled with recently realizing the strong father-son bond going on with Firestorm's fragments, made Captain Chronology Cruising Cowboy start to remember how immensely horrible witnessing his own child perishing right before his eyes felt. So of course, much regret-fueled double-backing occurred. Snart's Sarah Slung, slaughtering shouldn't stay standard suggestion, is of course fueled by all the good deeds he's currently performing, putting Mr. Barry Allen on his mind, aka the man who persuaded Leonard himself to not massacre folks via skill questioning, focused challenging. Star City 2046. Seeing as Connor truly didn't believe Oliver was alive, chances are his archery teacher was one Roy Harper. Mentor option lacking aside, the fact that Mr. Hawk but not Man seems to shoot arrows rather fast provides fairly ample support for this idea, as relentless pointy Deathbringer launching was one of Arsenal's specialties. If nothing else, witnessing said accelerated arrow assault arranged assailant annihilation regularly may have inspired the new Emerald Archer to hone that one attribute in particular, so solo mob overcoming would become somewhat more manageable. Oliver's shooting speed also seems heightened a fair bit. Perhaps this is because he no longer has to worry about his arm getting worn out from all-day consuming bow grasping. Mr. Queen seems to possess a noticeably wider array of trick arrows in 2046 than he did back in the day. There's a few good reasons for this. He'd of course simply develop more over time to handle the different scenarios brought forth by new threats. Also boredom. On top of that, old age-induced physical might degradation would make some sort of strength lack compensating necessary, even before the arm losing occurred. Marooned. Era-hopping piracy would definitely be a very lucrative criminal enterprise, since the Time Master's mission importance means any fallen agents would get replaced nigh instantaneously, thus granting fortune-hopeful temporal swashbucklers an essentially endless stream of new targets. Since Sara spent about half a decade being part of a fanatic killer ninja club that pretty much exclusively relied on herbs and mystical junk to heal folks, it makes sense she'd never consider medication as an option for handling Mick's mental-emotional issues. Despite the rule about during employment personal attachment, the Time Masters probably want their retired workers producing offspring. After all, anybody raised by somebody working for these people would likely possess a temperament that'd make them easy to recruit somewhere down the line. Hence that seemingly kinda contradictory aliases must be used so family members don't get attacked rule. Kendra's strong discomfort with Ray's snake-related talk may be caused by former life stemming memories of asps in ancient Egypt. Those poisonous, slithering reptiles were sometimes used to execute criminals, an event that Shayera might have witnessed more than a few times in her role as a high-ranking official. Night of the Hawk. Sara makes a good fake nurse because the League training that granted her the ability to kill people in an incomprehensibly large number of disturbingly creative ways must have involved much human-centered anatomical study. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya.